Welcome back to Fictional History 101. I'm your fictional professor, Aaron Johnson. Today, we'll be covering more of the history of Mobile Suit Gundam. In particular, we'll be covering the years immediately after the One-Year War. This will mostly cover content from Stardust Memories, but there will be some mentions from Unicorn, Gundam Thunderbolt, and a few other small sources. In UC-80, a peace treaty was signed between the Earth Federation and the surviving leadership of the Principality of Zeon. Side 3 was allowed to keep its independence, though with a reduced military power. Many within Zeon were unhappy with this outcome and scattered. Several Zabi loyalists fled to the asteroid base Axis with the young Minerva Zabi, while others sped towards Mars, and others still, such as Aiguille Delaz and the Invisible Knights, hid within the Earth sphere. It's difficult to point to a single reason why these Zeon holdouts remained. Some felt that those who had signed the treaty did not have the power to do so, as they were not a member of the ruling Zabi family, making the surrender and subsequent treaty invalid. Others simply didn't care, feeling that their war against Earth was more important. They fully believed in the ideologies preached by Zeon Daikun and Degwin Zabi, that this was a battle for the future of humanity. Still more were simply trapped, abandoned on Earth during the Zeon evacuation, or left to linger in the Earth sphere. Many refused to surrender for personal or, in some cases, criminal reasons. Regardless, these Zeon forces remained in the Earth sphere, often well-armed and looking for an opportunity to continue the war. The Zeon remnants were not the only ones harboring animosity over the war. Many Federation citizens felt that those in space couldn't be trusted, and that granting them independence would only lead to future conflict. With the high death toll of the One-Year War, including the colony drop of Operation British and the early colony gas attacks, many Federation citizens had come to fear their spaceborne neighbors. This would lead to Federation atrocities as well, such as the massacre of Zeon citizens and prisoners in Globe City after the One-Year War. Incidents like this would fuel resentment towards the Earth in the years following the war. While there were many Zeon guerrilla actions, such as attacks from the survivors of Zeon's Living Dead division and the Invisible Knights, the most notable would be the actions of the Delaz Fleet in Anavel Gato. By the end of the war, the Federation was looking to rebuild itself, both economically and militarily. While there was peace in the Earth sphere outside of scattered Zeon guerrillas, the military did not want to be scaled back. Instead, they wished to rearm themselves to deal with the lingering Zeon forces. To this end, the Federal Forces Reconstruction Plan was passed, which meant to reorganize and rebuild the Federation military. The main thrust of the Reconstruction Plan was to overhaul the existing lines of Salamis and Magellan-class ships. They would be outfitted with better megaparticle cannons, as well as increased close-range defenses, which were meant to fend off mobile suit attacks. It's interesting to note that despite the lessons of the One-Year War, namely that ships would need to depend more on a complement of mobile suits instead of their own weaponry, none of these upgrades included adding hangars or launch equipment to Federation ships. While the Pegasus-class assault carriers would still be produced, the Federation did not seem to accept mobile suit capability as being an essential part of the fleet's development. It seems that the Federation did not consider Zeon to be in a position to field high numbers of mobile suits. With the focus on upgrading its ships and their ability to engage Zeon ships instead of mobile suits, it seems they intended to destroy Zeon combatants before they could even launch their mobile suits. Alternatively, the Federation may not have believed Zeon would be able to field mobile suits in significant enough numbers to continue posing any real threat, and refocus their efforts on a battleship-centric combat doctrine. The Earth Federation would also secretly open their own new type labs to carry on the research that had begun with Zeon. The military had also begun developing a successor to the solar system that had been created at the end of the One-Year War. In addition to overhauling their line of ships, the Gundam development project would begin in secret. This project was meant to produce a new line of highly capable mobile suits, specifically successors to the nearly legendary RX-78 Gundam. To this end, they signed a contract with Anaheim Electronics to serve as the primary provider of mobile suit development. By the end of the war, Anaheim had grown considerably, as they had aggressively recruited Zeon scientists and even absorbed many of their assets. While they had a great deal of experience with mobile suit designs from the GM and Gundam lines, the additional manpower would greatly increase their ability to design new and inventive mobile suits. While they had a great deal of experience with mobile suit designs from their GM and Gundam lines, the additional Zeonic manpower would greatly increase their ability to design new and inventive mobile suits. Anaheim quickly produced the GP-00, the first prototype of the Gundam development project. While this unit would be destroyed during a test flight due to stability issues, its test data would result in the divergence of the suit into 4 different Gundam lines: the GP-01 Zephyranthus, GP-02 Physalis, GP-03 Dendrobium Stamen, and the GP-04 Gerbera. Each of these lines had a different specialization, but the one that would be most important to the Delaz Fleet's actions would be the GP-02 Physalis. This unit was equipped with heavy armor and designed to use strategic nuclear weapons. While some would argue that this would be a violation of the Antarctic Treaty's ban on nuclear weapons, many within the Federation argued that the treaty would not be voided by the development of nuclear weapons, only their usage. In addition, the Principality of Zeon no longer formally existed, replaced instead by the Republic of Zeon, which was not a signatory of the Antarctic Treaty. It's a curious development for the Federation, as the yield of nuclear weapon used is far greater than would be needed for engaging the Zeon remnants in the Earth sphere. It's important to note there's no definite yield on the Mark 82 warhead that the GP-02 would use. However, it is large enough to decimate an assembled fleet of warships. Whether this was intended for an eventual battle against the forces stationed at Axis, or some other purpose, it's difficult to say. As the Gundam development plan progressed, the Delaz Fleet shored up its assets. The Delaz Fleet was led by Agi Delaz, a Giran Zabi loyalist who had fled with his fleet during the Battle of Abawaku. He believed that Giran's death was the result of a power grab by Cassilia Zabi, and had lost faith during the fight. However, in the years after the One-Year War, he worked to consolidate his forces and planned revenge against the Federation. Delaz worked to contact the Zeon forces at Axis, and by UC-82 had finished construction of a base within the Shoal Zone, formerly the colony Loom. This base was well hidden, and even able to produce mobile suits of its own. In addition, Delaz and Axis had worked to place spies into key positions within the Federation military. By UC-83, this would lead to Delaz's discovery of the Gundam development project, and set into motion Operation Stardust. Operation Stardust was planned to destabilize the Federation government and expose its anti-space feelings, leading to a rise of a renewed Zeon power. It planned to accomplish this in 3 parts. The first step was stealing the nuclear-equipped Gundam Physalis, or GP-02. Delaz planned for his ace pilot Anavel Gato to infiltrate the Federation's Torrington base and steal the mobile suit after it had been loaded with a nuclear weapon. This was intended to expose the Federation's breach of the Antarctic Treaty, as well as allow for the second phase of the plan. The second stage would begin with Delaz declaring war on the Earth Federation. Using the GP-02, Gato would launch a nuclear warhead during the naval review above Solomon, now renamed Konpei Island. This would eliminate a great deal of the assembled ships, and was intended to greatly weaken the Federation fleet. In addition to this, it was meant to serve as a distraction while the second team enacted the final phase of the plan. The final stage of the plan was to hijack 2 colonies and direct them towards Von Braun's city on the Moon, feigning a colony drop on the lunar city. However, the true intent was to bounce the colonies off one another, having the authorities at Von Braun sending a signal to ignite the propellant in the colony and lead to one of the colonies impacting North America instead. This was intended to eliminate the primary source of food for the Federation, further weakening their ability to compete with Zeon militarily or economically. The plan would face 2 major complications: the pursuit of the carrier Albion with its accompanying Gundam, and the machinations of the Zeon pirate Sima Garahau. We'll get to them in a minute, though. With Operation Stardust planned, Delaz sent Gato to meet with their spy who had infiltrated Torrington base, as well as a small mobile suit team that would help distract the base defenders and cover their escape. The 2 prototype Gundam units, the GP-01 and GP-02, were to be delivered by the Pegasus-class carrier, the Albion, for testing at the Torrington base in Australia. While delivery went according to schedule, Shortly after the nuclear warhead was loaded, Gato was able to board the GPO-2 and begin his escape. While one Federation pilot, Ko Uraki, was able to fight Gato for a short while using the GPO-1, ultimately Gato was able to escape. While the Albion would be able to track Gato to the Kinbared diamond mine in East Africa, Zeon holdouts were able to prevent them from intercepting him before he could escape Earth. Gato returned to space, heading to the secret Delaz base to regroup. At about this time, Delaz met with the Zeon pirate Sima Garahau. He hoped to have her join him in executing Operation Stardust, as she had a number of ships and mobile suits under her command, and he needed the additional forces in order to steal the colonies. Sima Garahau had served under Zeon during the One-Year War. She was among the first mobile suit teams who attacked colonies using gas weapons. While she would be promoted and given command of a Gelgoog Marine team, she would ultimately be left behind by the fleeing Zeon forces. Her former commander had blamed her for using nerve gas and left her as a scapegoat for Federation forces. She took what ships she could, namely a handful of Musai and a Zanzibar II cruiser, as well as her complement of Gelgoog Marine units, and fled into space. Although she had fought against the Federation during the war, she would ultimately come to want revenge against Zeon for abandoning her and forcing her to take part in gassing colonies. When Delaz approached her, she began to set in motion her plans to betray him to the Federation. She made contact with the Federation and planned to meet with Inspector General Admiral Green Wyatt in order to divulge important details of Operation Stardust. The Albion went to Von Braun City, planning to upgrade the GPO-1 in order to better combat the Zeon forces in space. During the Albion's stay, Delaz and Gato would make their announcement to the Earth Sphere, declaring a renewed war against the Federation.
Now, with the blood of the young burning within us, I declare war upon the Earth Federation government. We shall ignore the whispers of what is known as a false peace. We shall repeat now and forevermore what we hear in our hearts to restore the glory of our homeland. Seek Zeon!
After leaving Von Braun City, the Albion would detect the Zeon remnant fleet belonging to Sima Garahau and move to engage them. What they did not realize is that she had been scheduled to meet with the Inspector General. While the Inspector General made a show of fighting off the Sima fleet, he allowed them ample time to flee from the engagement area. Sima would later make contact with high-ranking members of the Earth Federation. It's difficult to know the extent of this group, but it at least counted Admiral Hyman Jamatov among its numbers. This group planned to use Operation Stardust as a catalyst for consolidating their power within the Earth Federation military. Around this time, a small Zeon fleet from Axis would arrive in the Earth Sphere. They had come with two purposes: to discreetly support the Delaz Fleet's operation, and to observe the ability of the Delaz Fleet to disrupt the Earth Federation. They would offer some nominal support, largely in the form of an experimental mobile armor, but otherwise would remain out of Operation Stardust, as Axis did not want to engage in another war with the Federation so soon after the One-Year War. The Earth Federation permitted them to stay in the Earth Sphere for a short time, however they were given a specific time frame before they would be forcibly removed. Delaz and Gato rendezvoused, heading towards the naval review that had been planned at the captured Zeon fortress Solomon, now renamed Konpei Island. While the Albion headed after them, they were unable to stop them from arriving with the captured GPO-2. Gato moved into position within the assembled fleet and fired the Mark 82 warhead they had stolen. This would result in nearly two-thirds of the assembled fleet being damaged beyond immediate use or even destroyed, with the remaining ships and even Konpei Island damaged from the blast. While the Federation attempted to recover from this attack, Sima's fleet was able to hijack the two colonies needed and prepared to enact the final phase of the plan. The colonies were bounced off one another, sending one spiraling into space while the other was on a collision course with Von Braun City. Attempting to prevent the colony from impacting the lunar city, the Federation fleet at Solomon regrouped and sped after them. However, when it neared the moon, officials within the city sent a signal to the colony, igniting its stored propellant. This would send it past the moon, and ultimately towards its target. The Earth Federation believed this was intended to be a strike against the Earth Federation headquarters at Jabro, a second attempt at Operation British. It's interesting to note that despite this possibility, the Earth Federation did very little to evacuate Jabro. It's possible that SEMA had informed members of the Federation military by this time that the real target was in North America. With the reformed fleet's propellant largely exhausted chasing after the colony, the Earth Federation would have to deploy the Earth Defense Fleet in order to intercept it. However, under Admiral Jamatov Hyman's orders, the fleet would not engage the colony past the final line of no return. Instead, they began preparations to deploy an upgraded version of the solar system used during the One-Year War. The Albion set course for the Anaheim research station Levion Rose and loaded the prototype GPO-3 Gundam Dendrobium Stamen, a powerful mobile armor. They believed they would need the additional power of the Dendrobium in order to defeat the combined power of the Delaz and SEMA fleets. While preparing to depart, the Gundam development project was suspended, and both the Anaheim and Federation forces aboard the Albion were ordered to stay away from the approaching colony. Captain Synapse of the Albion opted to join the fight regardless of orders, and used his crew to hijack the prototype Gundam mobile armor. While the Albion took control of the Dendrobium mobile armor, the small Axis fleet met with the Delaz Fleet and transferred the mobile armor they brought with them to bolster Delaz's forces. During the engagement between the Federation and the Delaz Fleet, SEMA boarded Delaz's flagship with a contingent of soldiers, planning to take control of the ship. With the element of surprise, she was able to storm the bridge and take Delaz hostage. She would kill him shortly after when he attempted to contact Gato, asking him to continue the operation. With SEMA's betrayal now made obvious, her fleet moved to defend the solar system, while the Albion was sent to reinforce them. While the solar system would engage the approaching colony, Gato was able to break through the defensive lines and destroy the system's control ship, reducing the attack's effectiveness and allowing the colony to break through the final defensive line, as well as the solar system itself. While SEMA would fight to defend the solar system, she was mistaken for an enemy unit by the Albion mobile suits and killed during the fight. In the confusion, Gato was able to board the colony and issue commands for a final course correction, confirming its approach to impact North America instead of Jabro. Not long after, the solar system would fire again, further damaging the Zeon mobile armor and eliminating more of the Delaz fleet's survivors. At this time, the Axis fleet's time in the Earth sphere was at an end, and they were ordered to leave. Rather than engage the Federation forces, they left the area, abandoning the remaining Delaz fleet members to the Federation. Gato and the others would attempt to break out of the encircling forces, but would die during the fighting. It's not clear how much of the Delaz fleet was able to escape. However, given the number of Federation forces and the immediate retreat of the Axis fleet, it's safe to say it was few, if any. The colony impacted North America. It would cause widespread devastation, particularly to agriculture and other farming operations in the area. By November 13th, UC-83, Operation Stardust had ended. The Federation began to take stock of what had occurred. While the operation had successfully been carried out, its goals were far from met. The colony had impacted North America, damaging food production for the Federation. However, it also increased tension and fear of those living in space. To this end, the Earth Federation began plans to form a group specifically meant to combat and counter Zeon operations. The Albion and its crew faced mixed results from the aftermath of Operation Stardust. For taking part in stealing the prototype Gundam Dendrobium, Ko Uraki, the pilot of the Gundam, faced 1 year of hard labor, while Captain Synapse would reportedly be sentenced to death, though Synapse's sentence could not be verified. On the other hand, several ace pilots from the Albion would be promoted shortly afterwards, joining a new Federation task force that was being created. December 4th, UC-83, Jamatov Hyman would form the Titans. Let's listen to a small section of the announcement that was presented by Captain Bask Alm, one of the first captains of the Titans.
Look back! This incident was caused by the idealist who dreamed of peace in the Earth system. The Delaz Fleet uprising is clearly just one example. You needn't look at the drop of the space colony 3 days ago, which devastated the North American mass granary, to realize that our Earth is exposed to many different threats. So now we must look forward to the future and be strong and never look back again. The Earth To ensure that this symbol of the universe is never shaken again, we have been reborn. The Earth. To return true power to its hands, the Titans now rise.
This group would serve as an independent arm of the Federation military, serving as a counterterrorism group. They would be dedicated to removing remnant Zeon forces, as well as keeping pro-Zeon forces in check. The Titans would be given a massive arsenal, access to the new type labs the Federation had developed, as well as their pick of Federation personnel. In addition, the Titans would not be directly tied to the Earth Federation chain of command, and were given a great deal of freedom in their actions. In the aftermath of Operation Stardust, many ace pilots, including those stationed on the Albion, would join the Titans. Their power would only grow as they gained more members, and more of the Earth Federation military transitioned into their ranks. While Operation Stardust had been meant as a renewal of Zeon fighting spirit, it served to start a severe backlash against those in space. While Delaz had intended it to be a rallying cry, it was not those in space who prepared for battle. It was the Federation. The Titans would be increasingly well equipped in the years following Operation Stardust, and would form an extremely potent fighting force. While this would mean increased fighting between Earth and the Zeon remnants in the Earth sphere, it was not against a scattered and besieged Federation, but a ruthless, well-armed military force. That's all the time we have for today. Next class we'll go over the build-up of the Titans, as well as the origins of the Grips conflict. We may touch on Ecole du Ciel and events of Zeta, but we will definitely talk about Zeta Gundam. If you have any questions, you can email me at fictionalhistory101@gmail.com or tweet me at fichist101. Thanks again for joining us in class, and please don't forget to study. The intro and outro music for this class is Labyrinth by Enrico Altavia, courtesy of freesoundtrackmusic.com.